scab for the bosses, don't listen to their lies. Us poor folks haven't got a chance unless we organize. Which side are you on?
Hey.
Which
Phoebe, I
side
have an
are
important question.
you
Please.
What are your bagel preferences?
Oh, and I have them.
And
it's serious. So, I love a plain with plain cream cheese.
Okay, just
and
like classic. For sure.
Yeah, and so so we're both vegan, me and Taylor. I will occasionally, like if necessary, I will like not eat vegan. So I'll occasionally have like an OG style bagel with real cream cheese, but there's a new, I think it's Follow Your Heart has a cream cheese that's like actually good, because vegan cream cheese is hard to find good.
Yeah, like a good,
vegan cream cheese,
one that fucks.
Yeah.
Sure.
I do not like everything bagels. Not a fan. Hate them.
Okay, interesting.
Just too many flavors going on.
Yeah, just too much. Like
it's
at
too
once
much
in your mouth.
And I feel like it's like the oniony, garlicky stuff. It's like my breath just smells and tastes like that for like a week.
Okay.
I feel like, if I want a dessert bagel, it's the cinnamon sugar bagel with strawberry cream cheese. Oof! It's like it's like it's like such a nice little treat.
Makes you cream your jorts.
I just did. My jorts specifically.
Only the jorts, yeah.
Yeah, I would say those are my go-tos. Oh, and then also, I do love the like garden. What is it? Like the garden something cream cheese from Einstein's?
Yes. It's like the ones that have like chives in it.
Yeah,
and stuff.
so good. And it's kind of like a red color. I love that if I'm gonna make like a little bagel sandwich.
Yeah, 5 sure even.
That's delicious. And then when I'm making bagels at home, I know I told you I had some serious thoughts about this.
I'm so ready.
We got a long talk. When I'm making bagels at home, I'll toast my bagel, vegan butter, avocado,
of course,
balsamic, sesames.
Balsamic vinegar on that bitch?
Yep.
Oh,
yep.
I've never even
I
thought
have
of
the
that.
thick kind that is
so
fucking good.
Yeah.
So good. Sesame seeds and lemon pepper on top.
Word. Okay.
Sometimes some arugula. Ooh, that's so good. That's one of my favorite breakfasts ever.
Okay.
And then I do have to say, I rescind what I said about the plain bagel, plain cream cheese. I'm going to have to always go sesame bagel. Sesame bagels
do fuck.
They are superior.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I do fuck with a sesame bagel. I unfortunately, I do kind of fuck with an everything bagel.
A lot of people do. I understand.
and it's just, I can't help it.
Yeah.
What can I say? But
it's all the tasty little shit on there.
I like them, but I understand not liking them for like having a little too much going on in your mouth. For sure.
Yep.
But yeah, just wondering. This is Remarks.
Yeah.
It's the podcast.
This is not a podcast about bagels.
Although we can make a podcast about bagels.
I have so many opinions, so I feel like I will say this. I've never had like a pure New York bagel. And I feel like I haven't lived until I do that.
Like one from New York?
Yes, like I'm in New York
style.
Yeah,
bagel,
I'm in New York and I'm eating a bagel.
A bagel
there.
From there, yeah. That makes sense. No, for sure. I'm trying to go to like the Newport Folk Festival this year. Which
in
is
Newport Beach?
It's in Rhode Island.
Oh.
Lots of Newports around, but
yeah, that's true.
But it's like a famous folk festival, but it's in Rhode Island, so I was like, maybe I'll just go to New York too.
Yeah, hell yeah.
While I'm up there.
Right?
Yeah. That'd be kind of cool.
That would be cool.
My name's Taylor.
I'm Phoebe. Hi. This is our podcast.
This is Bagelcast.
The
only podcast about bagels.
Oh,
honestly,
God.
I wonder if there is a podcast currently about
there is a
bagels.
podcast for everything.
True. I'm gonna check, honestly.
Okay. I will tell us.
Wait.
Oh.
The Bagel Report. I just
boom.
Found. Yeah, and it's got like 2 bagels in a newsroom.
Cute.
Oh, and the Bagel Podcast is another one.
Oh, there you go. Just straight up the Bagel. Well, we're gonna start listening, and
we'll let you know how it is.
We'll report back. Yeah. Support our friends at the Bagel Podcast.
Truly.
Well, today we are going to just give you some little knowledge, give you a little nugget of knowledge about what stuff is in this world.
Like a pearl necklace, but the cum is knowledge and the neck is your brain.
Exactly. Yeah.
Basically the same thing.
Totally like that. We're going to jizz some knowledge right onto your neck.
Exactly.
We're back. We're back in it. Everything's good. I feel like we're back in your space too. We had been recording at my home because of my doggy and her 3 legs. Mm-hmm. We're back in Taylor's space, and it just feels like, mixing up your creative space is always good.
True, yeah. Mm-hmm. Get you out of your comfort zone. Get you, I don't know. I guess thinking.
Yeah.
Who knows?
So anyway, today I'm going to tell you about tariffs and what even are they and why.
What the fuck is that?
What's the deal with them? Do we like them? Do we hate them? So what is a tariff?
I'm gonna guess it's a hate thing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm honestly, I'll get into it, but I'm like kind of ambivalent, except for like, of course, the United States has found a way to like make it evil, so I can't be ambivalent.
Goes,
like I would be, because I'm kind of like, it's whatever. But okay, so anyway, so let's tell you what this is. So a tariff is a tax on imported goods. The U.S. puts tariffs in place on foreign goods in order to encourage American customers to buy American-made products. And other countries do this as well for other countries importing into their country, right? This isn't just an America thing. This exists over the whole world, every country. This can affect the country exporting the goods because it can lower the amount of products being sold, and this can cause their economy to suffer. However, it's like not always a bad thing. It's kind of just like a pretty normal, natural, like, hey, this is coming from this country, we're gonna add a little extra fucking shit to it, you know?
There's like supply and demand. Like,
sure,
if it's higher in price, then there's like less of a demand,
Yeah, it's nothing evil yet.
Not quite.
Yeah. So, for instance, let's say that a dildo from China costs $10 and a dildo made in the U.S. costs $15, but with an added tariff on foreign plastics, the price of the Chinese dildo is now brought up to $18, which causes the U.S. consumer to choose the dildo made in the homeland. Yeah? Right?
Makes sense, yeah. No.
Simple stuff, kind of.
But they do make nice dildos in China. So.
They do. They make...
they make a lot of nice things.
We get most of my shit is from there.
Yeah.
So
unfortunately, they use a lot of child labor, but
yeah. Yeah. Another reason why the U.S. outsources. Anyway, so as I was saying, I kind of don't really have an opinion for or against them, aside from like I have an opinion on how they're used, but like the fact that they simply exist, I'm kind of like,
True.
I think that they can protect the jobs of Americans and they can promote our economy here in the U.S. For instance, in 2019, Biden instated a tariff on steel products from all countries except for Mexico, Canada, and the U.K. And Mexico and Canada get off without a tariff because of NAFTA, which I'll kind of get into later.
Word.
And then the UK, there was some thing going on with steel trade. It's not really important. Anyway, but this tariff was put on, it was pretty high, was put on for all other countries. And this was put in place to protect the job of American steel workers. And so that was helpful. I mean, steel workers are like our labor.
True, yeah.
Our blue collar type people. So, this is an instance, I think, where it wasn't necessarily a bad thing. It encouraged consumers or American companies to to buy steel from America rather than outsourcing, whatever.
Exactly.
The downside to tariffs is that governments have figured out how to turn these taxes into warfare, of course. If America is beefing with a certain country, they can raise the price of the tariffs on their imports, basically ending the trading altogether or like severely bottlenecking it.
Yeah.
And because America is a superpower, ending or at least significantly decreasing trade with certain countries can seriously affect that country's economy. And when the products from that country are already being sold for pennies, this can really harm the citizens of that country. So, for instance, like, it's not a like trade war going on with Russia, but when the Russia-Ukraine thing, I shouldn't say thing, when Russia started invading and bombing the citizens of Ukraine, Joe Biden put in a tariff on, like a way higher tariff on Russian products in order to kind of encourage people to not buy shit from Russia. Bringing tariffs into America's personal beef can also backfire and start a trade war, as Donald Trump did with China. And this has been affecting us until, like, still right now in this moment.
Actively, as we speak.
And I'm going to quote from, what is the website? Investopedia.com, which is a pretty good resource, by the way. So it says, beginning in January 2018, former President Trump imposed a series of tariffs on anything from steel and aluminum to solar panels and washing machines. These duties impacted goods from the European Union and Canada, as well as China and Mexico. Excuse me, I had a hiccup. Canada retaliated by imposing a series of temporary duties on American steel and other products. The EU also imposed tariffs on American agricultural imports and other products, including Harley-Davidson motorcycles.
Yeah.
By May of 2019, tariffs on Chinese imports impacted nearly $200 billion of imports. As with all trade wars, China retaliated and imposed stiff duties on American imports. A study by the International Monetary Fund shows that U.S. importers of goods have primarily shouldered the cost of the imposed tariffs on Chinese goods. These costs are eventually passed on to the American consumer in the form of higher prices, which is the exact opposite of what the trade war is intended to accomplish. But of course, that's why it's called a trade war, because it doesn't fucking work.
Yeah, it's true. I was going to say, because I remember in my economics class in high school, which I took AP economics, we had talked about like tariffs and stuff. And one of the things that my teacher brought up was that like Harley-Davidson had a tariff placed for them. Like they had like gotten the government to place a tariff on like Japanese motorcycles because they were just making them so much cheaper over there.
Right.
And then like once Harley-Davidson kind of like got its brand and everything, they just kept the tariff there. And I don't know if it's still there at this point, but like they just kind of like kept the tariff. So it was like way cheaper to like buy Harley-Davidsons than other motorcycles when it would have been like insanely cheaper to buy like Japanese motorcycles. I don't know.
Fascinating.
Just a tidbit from my high school days.
A little morsel of info there.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah. So Trump imposed tariffs on Chinese goods that led to, as of now, or I think the article I was reading was in 21, about $370 billion of like extra charges on top of what you would already be paying for these things. The plan was to shrink the Chinese economy in order to get their government to agree to other trade deals with the U.S. However, of course, as I was saying, this led to China retaliating with their own tariffs and ultimately just ended up hurting the U.S. consumer and costing American jobs. So
very cool how that's always the case. It's like a bunch of leaders being fucking babies, and then
exactly, it's like what did we call it? Like a proxy war? Is that what they say? Yeah, I mean it's like similar to that, where it's just like these two leaders are all like, I don't want to pay your thing. Well, I want you to agree to my thing. Meh. And then like everybody just keeps making products cost more and more and more money, and then like we are fucked over because of course they're never gonna have to deal with any of this shit. It's always like the bill is always footed onto like us, the consumer.
I mean, with any kind of war, it's always like a bunch of like leaders being angry at each other, and then a bunch of like normal people suffering because of it. So
exactly,
no matter what the war is, if it's like an actual war or like a trade war or whatever the fucking case is, like it's always bullshit like that.
It's true because they're not gonna go out there and do this. So true. And then I have a quote from CNN for you about this.
Word.
Quote, the tariffs have hurt Americans too. They've cut into U.S. businesses' bottom lines, forcing owners to make decisions about job cuts and raising prices on consumers. Plus, the uncertainty around how long the tariffs will be in place, this was as of 2020, and whether Trump will escalate the rate, which he did in May of 2020, with just days' notice, deter businesses from making long-term investments, potentially costing U.S. growth. A report from Moody's Analytics says the trade war with China, which started in early 2018, cost 300,000 jobs through September of 2020 based on an economic simulation. A survey of businesses by staffing firm Challenger, Gray, and Christmas found that trade difficulties were cited as the reason for more than 10,000 job cuts in August alone. And an analysis by the Tax Foundation also suggests that trade war will result in job losses in the long run. So again, this is just like proof that, him starting this whole thing just has fucked over Americans, basically, which was his entire thing of saying, why I'm going to do this was Trump had literally claimed that it was going to create more jobs and create cheaper shit, all of that. And of course, that was not the outcome, and all it did was ruin our lives more.
Well, yeah, because he assumed that, like, and he's an idiot, he assumed that, like, China would be like, oh, no, now we can't sell as many things. I guess we have to do exactly what Donald Trump says.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, of course they're not going to fucking do that. Like, it's China.
Yeah, and again, and China's another, like, world superpower.
Exactly.
Like, we are not number one over here.
Yeah, it's like they have weight to pull. Like, a lot of shit is made over there. Like, they can fucking throw... They got leverage,
Exactly.
You can throw that bussy around.
Yeah.
Like, for lack of a better term.
In a circle.
In an actual circle.
Mm-hmm.
Full 360, really.
Absolutely. And so Donald Trump, as he often does, claimed that China would be the one paying for these tariffs, as he did with the wall.
Yeah.
And that U.S. consumers had nothing to fear. This, of course, was not the case at all, and the truth became clear as the months of this so-called trade war went on. And again, I have a piece from the CNN article. Quote, 2 recent papers have found that the tariffs on Chinese goods, as well as those imposed on foreign steel, aluminum, and washing machines, have raised prices on American consumers. That's because some importers passed along the cost of the tariff, and some domestic producers raised prices as they saw less foreign competition. A March paper from economists at Columbia, Princeton, and New York Federal Reserve found that the full incidence of Trump's tariffs have fallen on domestic companies and consumers, costing them $3 billion a month by the end of 2018. The paper also found that tariffs led to a reduction in U.S. income by $1.4 billion a month. A separate academic paper also found that the tariffs led to higher consumer prices. It estimated that the tariffs will result in a $7.8 billion per year decline in income. So, again, it's basically saying that this has fucked over U.S. consumers. So, when the companies were unable to import Chinese goods, and then they realized, oh, people aren't buying, like, the Chinese washing machine, we can charge as much as we want, basically. And so these U.S. companies started charging more for their products. And then also they are, like, not able to get the materials as cheaply as they used to, using, even if it is a U.S. company, like a lot of U.S. companies that have shit that's produced in the U.S. still uses shit from China. It's like they order in, the steel or whatever it is, or a piece of something, and then it's assembled and other pieces are made in the U.S., but it's not like 100% U.S. made. Like 99% of our shit that says it's made in the USA has shit from China still in it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they're just saying that, like, yeah, like, this ended up just costing us, the consumer, an extra $3 billion, and then cost us $3 billion, and then we're losing out on, like, $7 billion in income.
Yeah. Wild. Wait, so you're telling me that a company hiked up the prices and made it harder for U.S. consumers?
Absolutely.
Businesses operating in their own interest? I've never heard of that concept.
Who could believe it? Yeah, and it's just, I mean, it's price gouging, basically, like, which is illegal, but of course
it's illegal if you're poor.
Yeah, right, right. And, it's kind of like, we're kind of seeing the same thing with the gas prices as well, too. Like, it's a similar situation, and it's just another example of this shit being, like, pushed onto the shoulder of the consumer, when it's like, well, why are we the one? I didn't want to get involved with, like, you know, fucking Russian whatever the hell, like. Oh
yeah, I mean, it's the same too, because companies exploit that. Like, I know that like a lot of places have raised their prices tremendously and then, like, blamed it on the inflation that's apparently happening, and it's like, it shouldn't, things shouldn't go up that much. Like, you're obviously just trying to, like, milk people for more money because you can blame it on inflation. But
literally, I was at the grocery store today, and this woman behind me in line was, like, being chatty, and she was like, can you believe this thing of oil cost me like $10? And it was, like, not a huge thing. I was like, holy fuck. At Winco, which is, like, a cheaper grocery store,
known for being, like, affordable.
Yeah, and, like, I didn't buy a lot of shit today. I had, like, a little handful of groceries today, and it cost me like $40, and I rarely at Winco, like, check out unless I'm buying, like, a ton of groceries. It usually, anyway, it's just, it's been interesting, and it's a real thing. It's a real thing. So the other issue with all of this is that the U.S. simply doesn't produce many of the products imported from China. or at least not at a level capable of keeping up with consumer needs. So as is evidenced by like these shipping delays that we're experiencing, back ordering, etc. And we're still seeing this 2 years later after all of these like negotiations going on with China.
I mean, yeah, that makes sense. Like it would take a long time for everything to like get back to
right.
where it was, and it might not ever be where, I guess, back where exactly where it was. But...
Right. Well, and it's like it's not even it. They're like now pushing. They're saying, oh well, let's take steel for the example. It's like they're trying to stop as much trade with China for steel or whatever as possible, and then pushing these American manufacturers to make like 4 times the amount of steel shit as they usually would, and they're just not equipped to do that. I mean, we saw this with the automotive computer chips. Yeah, like we see this shit we saw that with what happened during the beginning of the pandemic in 2020. A lot of places slowed down production and then had to speed production back up, and they weren't prepared to speed production back up when people kept buying all this shit. And yeah, it's just basically that kind of same thing is happening again, where it's like, it's Donald Trump doing this shit overnight where he like expects people to just snap into like doing whatever he says we're going to do now, like he did with the airlines and everything. And yeah, these American companies are simply just not equipped to produce the amount of shit that people would be ordering from China. Like, we don't have the space and the labor and the production level that they do. They've been doing it for years that way.
Yeah, definitely.
You know who does produce everything so much and quickly?
It's the Anchor podcast, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. They are the number one steel producers in the entire world.
Yeah.
And they operate they own a private island, and you can barely even see it on a globe. It's so small and it's so secluded. Mm-hmm. And all they do is make steel all day, every day.
Yeah, like you need a stainless steel machete that you can attach to a chain and wave over your head and swing around and endanger the lives of multiple people.
Yeah.
Anchor podcast.
Call them up.
Call them up.
Call them up.
That's what I do. I mean,
yes.
Well, and then like, people get mad at me for that. And then I'm like, well, but they said, Anchor podcast,
Helicopter machete.
Yeah. And then they're like,
get it here.
It makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Helicopter machete. Yeah. That's, the name
for all
of my
your
band.
Cutting needs. That's a sick. Ooh, I'm writing that down. Helicopter machete. I love that.
Helicopter machete.
Mm-hmm. That's my metalcore band.
It should be truly like doom metal.
Yeah,
Moonshine.
Absolutely.
Moonshine keeps pushing my laptop with her face.
Moonshine, don't break a computer.
Yeah.
Anyway.
We're back.
Sut bitch.
And we're reporting that Moonshine ain't got shit.
No, she thinks she's so tough.
She ain't.
Nope.
She's a tiny little baby, actually.
You can't fucking fight, Moonshine.
Yeah. You don't even know how to punch.
You can't even you can't even make a fist.
True. Yeah, you don't even have opposable thumbs.
You couldn't even get me if you tried.
True. You're a tiny little cat.
You're a little baby.
Yeah.
You're a tiny baby.
Maybe if you were like tiger size.
Yeah.
You'd have a chance, but
you're a tiny baby. You've been
small.
Evolved to be a small domestic cat.
True.
So you don't stand a chance against these bad boys.
These fists.
That was my fist.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man. We're back. Let's talk about these little taxes some more.
Yeah, sorry for low energy. It just gets dark so early.
I know,
and I feel like all my energy is just like zapped away.
Oh,
once
absolutely,
the sun
same.
Goes down.
Yeah, no, absolutely, same, absolutely, same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We're doing great. We're going. It's all good. I should really get like a little sun lamp or something, like, and just lay under it like a lizard, and just soak in the vitamin D.
Yeah, you just need like a vitamin D lamp.
I do. I guess I could take like this up anyway. I need to do something.
Yeah, something needs to change.
This is not working for me.
This ain't it, Chief.
No. Okay. So, speaking more about how the U.S. just has turned tariffs into a terrible thing. So another quote for you from CNN, because why not? So, quote, while there are likely a lot of factors at play, a recent paper from economists at the Federal Reserve showed that the tariffs are certainly dragging down the sector. It's true that some businesses benefit when Trump's tariffs make a foreign competitor's goods more expensive, but many manufacturers need to import materials from abroad in order to assemble goods domestically, and tariffs have hit items like steel, motors, and bicycle parts, right? So like I was saying, even goods manufactured in the U.S., like a bicycle, you can call it U.S. made, but it still uses pieces that are imported from China. And so sorry.
Race to China?
China. Whatever, however he was saying it.
Yeah.
Anyway, and so, this is affecting like businesses that are domestic businesses because, as we were saying, I mean, it's like at this point in the world, like 99% of what you get has something that's come from China in it. One piece of it, at least, is from China, and there's no real way to circumvent that at this point. And so by doing this, of course, again, the fucking idiot has just made rash decisions because he wasn't getting his way that come back on us, the citizens, and fuck us over. Anyway, whatever.
Absolutely.
Terrible man, terrible president. So China retaliated to these intense tariffs by raising their tariff on American agricultural imports. As we were saying, this whole trade war thing starts happening. And so instead of being like, yeah, totally, you're being rude, we're going to follow your lead. We're going to like do whatever you say now. Of course, they're going to like retaliate. And so, because of this, this caused U.S. farmers to suffer, and it made Trump dish out a huge bailout, $28 billion to be exact. And this is super high for a bailout. This was higher than I think it was in like 2009. There was some like automotive bailout that was like massive, and it was a huge deal, and everyone was talking about it. This is like twice the amount of that. And even with this money, the farming industry still suffered. In 2020, a 24% increase in farm bankruptcies was reported. And so all of this led up to Trump removing NAFTA altogether and creating a new trade agreement between the U.S., Mexico, and Canada. So what is NAFTA? It's short for the North American Free Trade Agreement. So basically what this does is remove any tariffs between all of the countries that are in the continent of North America. Yeah. So Canada, Mexico, and the United States.
Didn't we kind of talk about NAFTA in the like Russia, like what the fuck's going on with Russia?
I believe
episode?
We did. I think we did.
Because wasn't NAFTA made as like an anti-communist thing? Or is that
pretty much? I mean, yeah, it was. Oh no, you're thinking NATO.
NATO, my bad. Okay, sorry.
Yes. Although this definitely could be as well because it was Ronald Reagan. So
yeah.
Of course it was Ronald Reagan.
Mr. Riggs.
Yeah. And again, like I think that NAFTA could have been looked at as like something not entirely dark and evil. Like it's like, oh, we're all on this little chunk of land together. Let's like make trade really easy in between our three countries. However, again, of course, they've found like a way to make it evil, and there's a lot of people that are against NAFTA.
For sure.
One of the big reasons is because they have like a lower threshold for the amount of like pesticides that can be used on foods and the type of pesticides that can be used on foods when they all joined into NAFTA. So a lot of people feel that like it's putting a lot more like poisonous things onto onto your foods and things like that. The biggest issue, of course, is the labor conditions. Because of this, people, especially in Mexico, could make people work for less and work in worse conditions. And they would just kind of accept it because they had to. Yeah.
Bad.
Not good.
Some would say evil.
Yes. As I said, this opens up again more like the type of like chemicals being used in and on, and not just pesticides, but like it's not lead paint, but like, you know, a similar idea as to lead paint and everything. But again, of course, yeah, the biggest issue here being like the labor laws are 0 to none. Donald Trump recently removed NAFTA. This isn't like a great thing. I don't really know that it's much better than what was already there. Again, it was something that was kind of put into place to help like America.
Yeah.
And to make you know, consumers buy more American products or use more American like farming and things like that. I don't really know that it's going to make life much better.
Yeah. I was going to say, as opposed to like getting products from Canada and Mexico, like, and using like labor in those areas for things.
Yes.
Is that like the
yeah. The main part of this is the auto industry. A lot of the auto industry work has been outsourced into Mexico because the labor is cheaper. With this new sorry, I lost my here it is.
It's okay.
Okay. So with this new agreement put into place, it requires that 40 to 45% of car and truck parts be made by workers earning at least $16 an hour. And so where you're probably going to find that is going to be
in the US.
In the US. And then this also, and this is less like just US centric and more North America centric, but it mandates that 75% of a vehicle's parts must be made in North America specifically.
Oh, interesting.
And so, you know, those Chinese or Japanese like pieces aren't going to be imported as much, at least for like Fords and, you know, things like that.
American companies, for sure.
For now, I mean, we've seen an increase in jobs a bit. We've seen a bit of an increase in like domestic economy. Other than that, I think it's going to be a while before we really see like the true outcomes of this, because this was just in 2020 that this happened.
Well, and I was going to say too, like another hard thing about like just the whole situation with these kinds of things is like, like, you know, it's good because Americans need jobs and stuff, but like also people in other countries need jobs and stuff.
Right.
Like,
that's exactly the thing.
So it's like, okay, I mean, it's like one of those things where it's like, which, you know, is it good really in the long run? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to say.
Yeah. I think it's
capitalism, man.
Yeah, exactly. It's like one of those things that it's like, there's no real good answer. I mean, the outcomes of NAFTA have not been great. The outcomes of this agreement, I think it's really not too much of a difference thus far. The Canadians aren't thrilled about it. So, yeah, I think it's just like we need to just uproot and find a completely new trade system altogether. Just because, I mean, clearly it's like huge American companies like Coca-Cola and shit are outsourcing work into these countries with zero labor laws and insanely low pay. And of course they're not going to be affected by this whole type of thing.
Of course not. And fucking mega corporations.
Exactly. And then, you know, the companies that are going to experience any kind of like detriment from this are going to be companies that are like smaller businesses that are truly local, like truly American owned companies. So yeah, it's good.
Good. Yeah, maybe we just need to like get a new economic system.
Yeah.
Maybe. Man, have I got a book for y'all. A certain manifesto of sorts.
Oh no.
Love it.
So there you go. That's my little
hell fucking yeah, dude.
Piece on tariffs.
Dope as well as sick, really.
Nasty.
And nasty, true. Dope nasty, as the kids say.
As the
tickety talkers are one to say.
Tickety talkers.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, Well, that was that was informative as fuck, dude.
Thank you.
I was telling Phoebe on the break, I'm gonna take over and start talking about sanctions, which is, I feel like you hear tariffs and sanctions like go together very often. I feel like a tariff is kind of a kind of sanction.
Sure.
Yeah, that's what I meant. So like some of the sanctions that will be used against countries will be tariffs, but sanctions are more like targeted. Like a tariff you can put into place and be like, oh, we're just doing this because we want to support our own economy. Whereas like a sanction is like we fucking hate you.
Right,
you know?
right. Like it's like outright saying
we're mad at you. We don't want you to sit with us at lunch.
Exactly.
Kind of thing, you know?
Right. And yeah, I feel like, you hear the term like government sanctioned.
Exactly. Well, okay, yeah. And that's the interesting part is like if the government sanctions something, that means they like approve of it. Whereas if they do a government sanction against a country, it means that it's a penalty. So it's like one of those like things that means complete opposites depending on the context.
I love English.
It's so good. So the definition of a sanction is a threatened penalty for disobeying a law or a rule. Again, when it comes to the context of like foreign policy.
Sure. Which is, as we know, very loose and easily mendable to whatever the American government thinks that it should be.
It's never like, I mean, it's not good for sure. We'll get into it. Sanctions are sanctions is a word that most people have heard, but many don't understand the true effects of. I'm sure that it's no surprise that the U.S. has a history of deploying measures that really only hurt the population of a country, and oftentimes not the actual leaders of the country that are making the decisions that America doesn't like.
Right.
Yeah. As we say here at Remarks, maybe leaders are a bad idea.
Maybe having leaders ain't such a good thing.
Ain't such a good thing, yeah. As someone said once.
Wise philosopher with long curly hair once said
in a song, maybe.
In his folk song.
In my folk song. Before we can dissect sanctions and why they are not very cash money, we should jump into where it all began, and that was with the war to end all wars. Also, almost the name of a certain folk singer. That's true. I have an album called that. If y'all are behind, it's actually called the war to end all words.
Yeah, it's great.
It's based off of that.
Give it a listen, folks.
So, post World War I, in the shocking destruction and travesty of it all, leaders of the world decided that, hey, maybe we should not let something like that happen again. Spoiler alert, they in fact did let something like that happen again.
It's actually called World War II.
Yeah. Kind of a lot, actually, though, because there was multiple wars after that, too.
Yeah, this is also true.
However, they decided to create a little organization known as the League of Nations. Established in 1919 under the Treaty of Versailles, it was a big group of leaders of various nations that all got together to tell everyone what to do, basically. Just to be like, oh, like, we're all together in this, we don't want war anymore.
We're all in this together.
Exactly, yeah. High School Musical is fuck.
Exactly, yeah. They were all dribbling and
dancing, singing.
Yeah.
They were like struggling whether they wanted to like pursue their like basketball career or like their musical theater career.
And France was like, let us help you figure it out.
Exactly, yeah, for sure. I should say that at its core, I don't think that like having like a coalition of countries is like a bad idea. Kind of like with tariffs, I guess. Like it's not necessarily bad.
Right. And like I think it could even be like a good thing. I think that we should be in communication and like peace with each other. Yeah, no, we should definitely like be talking to each other. Yeah. Communication makes the dream work, However, I have a feeling that they found a way to make it fucked up. Always. But as we'll come to learn, and I'm sure you probably know, it isn't always the most effective of tactics to have a bunch of like leaders be in charge of literally what everybody else is going to do. Right. But you know who should really be in charge of everything that you do? Oh man. Jesus Christ.
True. Yeah, no, that's actually who this next sponsor is for, is
just Jesus Christ himself.
Yeah, no, for sure.
He just comes on, he's like, hey, it's Jesus here.
And that's fucking Boston Jesus, which I've heard is the best Jesus.
Oh, yeah, no, he's like, Boston Jesus is fucking tight.
Yeah,
like,
no,
you're
he's homie.
going out, you're fucking slamming peepers with the boys on the weekends. You're going
Samuel
to
Adams,
the
to be
fucking,
exact.
Sam Adams. You're fucking going to the Bears games. Like, yeah, no. Yeah.
True.
You're having
He's
a good time.
turning water into fucking, like, margarita mix.
Yeah.
It's sick.
Yeah. No, you're
No,
having
for
a
sure.
good time.
Great time.
You're hanging out at the Bean.
The bean. Oh, wait, what?
Did you say Boston?
I mean, yeah, I did say Boston. Boston Jesus?
Oh, wait.
The Bean is in Chicago.
Fuck. Oh, no. I'm so sorry, everyone. Please
That's
don't get
okay.
upset.
I'm sure.
I was
someone
thinking,
might
okay,
be. I don't
but
know.
Boston baked beans.
Nah,
that's
true.
a thing.
That's also true, yeah.
I think I was getting confused
So
with that.
you're eating Boston baked beans
Yeah, with Jesus.
with Boston Jesus.
Boston Jesus, yeah.
For sure.
Then why does Chicago have a bean?
I don't know.
Just
it just
for
has
fun.
a giant mirror bean.
I guess
yeah.
why do we have a whale?
True.
If y'all don't know, Salt Lake City got a huge
Yeah.
sculpture of a whale.
It's like a
That's
rainbow
like
whale.
Rainbow. Yeah, it's kind of it's interesting. I've learned to
It's-
love her though. I hated her at first, but I've kind of
Yeah.
grown to
It's
like.
grown on you? Yeah.
She's quirky. She's a quirky girl.
I was always like, because I used to live right by the whale
Oh yeah, you
for a
do.
second, and
That's
like
right.
I just feel like every time I drive in the little roundabout by the whale, people
Uh.
would be looking at the whale, and then I always get in an accident because people were like staring at the fucking whale. You
Yeah,
know?
of course. Yeah, no, that makes so much sense.
It's
for
literally
this
in the middle of
place.
a roundabout. Like, why would you put the whale there? It's a terrible place.
Yeah, that is really stupid. Oh no. Anyway.
It's whales. We are back.
What's up, baby?
So fucking back, actually. Incredibly back.
So back.
So back. Okay. So yeah, jumping back into it here. During the years of the League, sanctions were called the economic weapon, or l'arme économique in French.
Taylor with
And-
the French.
What can I say? Been
He's-
learning French.
Yeah, busting on the Duolingo.
True, I'm on like a fucking big old streak. Like 65 days.
Fuck yeah, good for you.
Thank you. I like it. It's fun. And were specifically inspired by the blockades that were put on German and Austro-Hungarian empires by the Allied powers in World War One. So this is like during the war, they would like blockade,
Mm-hmm.
and like stop supplies from going into these places.
Right.
Sanctions and blockades, of course, go back thousands of years, with the first recorded example being in 432 BC. According to a Corp Watch article on the subject, officials in Athens attempted to block the trade from the state of Megara to the Athens harbor. It didn't work. However, it proves that like blocking the flow of supplies has been a weapon that humans have loved to deploy for almost as long as we've lived in societies. So yeah, not something that's like uncommon to do, of course.
Right.
During World War I, international committees and ministries were established to interrupt the flow of goods, energy, and food, and different kinds of supplies, to the Axis powers, and this interruption had lasting consequences on Eastern Europe and the Middle East. Due to the lack of food and medical supplies being shipped in, it is estimated that thousands died of hunger and disease back in those days, so like during the post-World War I, because of all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Because crazy fact, but even when a country's at war, people do in fact need to eat.
Yeah, crazy.
Crazy to
It's
think
like,
that.
oh, weird how like when you block an entire country from receiving like aid and food and whatever it is that they need, that it actually like affects the people that are just like chilling, living there, not trying to be a part of this war.
Absolutely.
as well.
Wild.
Yeah, which is like, oof. Not to get into it, but like the Russian situation. It's like Russian citizens are not a part of this.
They're kind of
like,
mad about it.
They
like, most of them
are.
yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. I follow this TikToker. And yeah, he's just been talking about like how, Russian citizens are like, hey, literally not my deal.
Yeah, literally.
Not a part of this.
Stop.
Not supporting of it. Just like, I just need to live my life, man.
It's, yeah, no, for sure. Well, and I was gonna like what have written here. Like, there's definitely a conversation to be had about how like humans view people of other countries and like the amount of nationalism and like homeland pride that we take during times of like turmoil against other countries, and how that's like shifted in like our modern times. I feel like, you know, even back in World War I, the world was much less like connected through the internet and like the ability to see what's going on.
Yeah.
So I don't think that it like justifies starving a population, but I can only imagine that people were just like generally less aware of the amounts of suffering that were happening back then.
I think so too.
But as we'll come to find out, that has not stopped America from doing it again.
Of course.
Lots of times. Time moves on like a runaway freight train, and the precedent set by Article 16 of the Covenant of the League of Nations would persist past its creators. The reason why we don't still have a League of Nations is that it failed moving into the 1930s due to the Depression and the onslaught of World War II, but it did set the groundwork for what would become the United Nations, which even more so refined the idea of economic sanctions. The true history-changing move that the League made was transforming the idea of economic sanctions from a wartime tactic to a peacetime weapon. So, like, sanctions were something that were commonly just agreed upon, like, you do this during, like, war.
Yeah.
Whereas the League, and in this, like, Article 16 of the League of Nations, like, their little covenant, they made it so that sanctions could be done to a country during peacetime. So, like, if you're like, oh, I don't like the fucking cut of this country's jib, then you can be like, cut them off, right?
Right.
Yeah, so the initial idea was cooked up by two dudes named Robert Cecil and Leon Borges during the Paris Peace Conference of 1919, which marked the end of World War I. Here's a quote from the author of the book, The Economic Weapon, The Rise of Sanctions as a Tool of Modern War, by Nicholas Mulder.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. That's it right there. It's a long one, but I think he says it very well. For one thing, it marked the international emergence of a new form of liberalism, one that worked through a technical and administrative apparatus of lawyers, diplomats, military experts, and economists. These officials worked first in wartime and then after 1919, had far-reaching effects. In a period when European governments granted suffrage and extended welfare and social insurance, sanctions made them see other populations as suitable targets of coercive pressure. Long-standing traditions such as the protection of neutrality, civilian non-combatants, private property, and food supplies were eroded or circumscribed. Meanwhile, new practices such as police action against aggressor states and logistical assistance to the victims of aggression arose. All of this amounted to a major and complex transformation of the international system. So again, very long quote, but basically just like the whole thing with the League of Nations truly shifted how we like did diplomacy in wartime and in peacetime. I need to let Moonshine in.
Yes, please. She's scratching at the door. Come here. She's just never satisfied.
Never. It's
Gotta
always
be
in and out with
gotta
her.
be out. You can never just lay down.
Ah, truly. Woodrow Wilson himself was quoted saying, "If thoughtful men have thought, and thought truly, that war is barbarous, the boycott is an infinitely more terrible instrument of war." I quote that to say that the men who were behind the rise of economic warfare were well aware of the destruction and the inhumanity that these blockades could have on the populations of a country, and willingly allowed this to happen. And I think, you know, I guess to give some benefit of the doubt, maybe some of them thought that, like, oh, a country would never let its people starve for the sake of, like, whatever the fuck they're doing, you know? But
boy, would they.
Boy, actually would they, yeah.
Crazy how they totally do.
Another fun fact is that many women's rights activists at the time became involved with being anti-sanction activists as well. So, like, you know, there's, like, the first wave of feminist movement that was going on at the time, and they were actually very anti-sanctions. Some did prefer sanctions to all-out war, but many saw the destruction that sanctions could hold on a nation and were staunchly opposed. So cool shit.
Yeah, very.
Moving into post-World War II, the economic sanction took off like wildfire into the Cold War world. I don't think I need to tell you who the sanctions were often erected against. Communist countries.
Yeah, yes. Oh, yeah, I was, yeah.
Yeah, and also just wanted to use the word erected, so.
Yeah. Erected.
As the years grew in ever-looming stature, so did the use of sanctions, specifically by the newest post-World War II superpower, the United States of America. Mm-hmm. By the mid to late 90s, sanctions were commonplace and were leveraged hard against many countries. Some of the most well-known being Cuba, Iran, Iraq, North Korea, and in more recent times, Syria and Russia. Russia being the most recent one.
Right, totally.
The Clinton administration aimed to exempt food and medicine from the scope of economic sanctions, which was like good, I suppose. Like basically them being like, no, we should still like give food and medical aid.
Like, dear fucking God.
Yeah. Which, like, yes, you should not starve people who are in a war-torn country. So 1 point for good old Bill, I guess.
Billy.
Oh, Bill.
Go play some more saxophone.
Minimum. Yeah, truly.
Or what does he play? Trumpet?
I
Saxophone.
think he plays the saxophone, yeah. What a guy.
Yeah.
A terrible man. Oh, God. For obvious reasons, human rights activists were not down with the starvation of thousands of humans. But they also found a unlikely ally in some corporations as well. Boeing Co., as well as Washington State's agricultural industry in the 90s, were very vocal about not wanting economic sanctions. They argued the amount of profit that was lost by not selling specific goods to a nation was hurting their business enough that they should reconsider the sanctions. I mean, I think it's kind of gross that you would like only care about a population for the profit. Say. But I guess, like, you know, the road to heaven is paved with bad intentions as well, right? Like, goes both ways. So, John Mueller, a political scientist, stated, sanctions have become a cheap way of doing foreign policy, except the costs are often really quite terrible. Yeah. Is what he said. So, and they say it's like a cheap way of doing foreign policy because, like, you can just throw a sanction on someone and, like, you don't have to actually, like, deploy troops. You don't have to actually like do anything really. Yeah. Just be like, oh yeah. During some of the major periods of sanctions against Iraq, groups of human rights organizers would lead teams of doctors and medical providers into the country to provide aid, which was considered illegal without approval from the State Department. So like people going in to like give aid to people was like bad, which, you know, doesn't seem bad to me, but America has this like fun thing that they do where like normally like generally can like accepted things that are good like they think are terrible.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, like helping people,
like sharing, like
giving people like medical,
like feeding kids breakfast if you're like a all black socialist organization.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, for sure.
No, and that's the most fucked up of it all, is giving children free breakfast.
Giving children breakfast so that they can, you know, do better in school is truly a horrific thing.
No, and it is.
A 1997 study showed that sanctions only achieved the desired outcomes of foreign policy about 13% of the time.
No shit.
So, not very good numbers. Really not that good. Though there have been some success stories with sanctions, like getting the Libyan dictator Muammar Gaddafi?
Muammar Gaddafi.
Yeah. To turn over 2 suspects in the 1988 bombing of Pan Am Flight 103. Even the victories seem to me to be like relatively small ones, considering the price that sanctions can have on a nation. You know. This article I found is rather old, but at the time in 1999 and 2000, it was shown that about 42% of the world's population was living under some kind of economic sanction by the U.S. And that, of course, can vary on severity of what is being held and can vary on what the issue the U.S. has with the country is.
Right.
Like, it can be for terrorism, war, or just like environmental issues, like just different things depending on what the fuck they're doing, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then it's like not all sanctions are going to be like super gnarly ass ones. Like,
sure.
Sometimes it can just be like a tariff, like what you were saying, where it's like, oh, they just tax it, or sometimes they can literally cut off all trade with the country. Like,
right.
It just depends. As many as 25 U.S. city governments attempted to put sanctions on different countries in 1999 as well, with, again, not many results. I just thought that was interesting that, like, city governments were like, yeah.
Yeah, that is
kind of weird.
Really interesting.
I don't know. And I wouldn't say that I'm, like, obviously not pro-war or pro-U.S. invasion by any means, but sanctions, kind of like what the quote was saying, they become this, like, new liberal way of pretending to enact change that can potentially kill millions of people,
right?
So that the government can feel good about not having gotten into a conflict.
Exactly.
Especially when it's costing the people of the nation their lives in, like, a humanitarian crisis. So
I mean, like, which I don't think the vaccine was like a sanctioned issue, but I mean, take that for example, was like, we were not giving that out to other countries and millions of people died.
I mean, yeah, exactly. Like, it's just, I don't know. Yeah. Not giving medical aid or and like in this case too, it's like, yeah, like there's a dictator that like we don't like. So it's like, oh, just slap a sanction on that country.
Yeah.
All the people there are going to fucking starve, and
right.
we can just feel good because we're not going to trade with this country.
Exactly.
You know?
And it's
instead of like actually trying to do something to help.
Right. Right.
And I don't have the answer of like what exactly we should do, but sanctions ain't it, Chief.
Yeah.
To get a little more specific with an example, the Security Council 665 was enacted in August of 1990, which was a force of multiple nations led by the U.S. to intercept vessels, cargoes, and crews carrying freight into Iraq. This of course had extreme consequences on the people of Iraq, and more specifically the children of the country, which are oftentimes, unfortunately, who suffer the most in situations like where sanctions kind of take over. In 2005, the Office of Foreign Assets Control fined an organization called Voices in the Wilderness $20,000 for gifting medicine and supplies to Iraqis without permission from the State Department. $20,000 is what they were fined.
Okay.
For giving people medicine.
Yeah.
It's fucking insane, dude.
Yeah.
Some say that the sanctions were successful in limiting the Iraqi military, and the Iraqi government, in response to the sanctions being placed on them, beefed up their agricultural industry by implementing penalties for not using all of the available land to grow food and making it more profitable for landowners and farmers to grow food. If land was also not being cultivated for growing food, it could be reclaimed by the state. So just stolen from a person because they couldn't farm on it or whatever. So real good.
Yeah.
And then just to end it off on, some real sad shit.
As we do.
The tragic loss due to the sanctions is like a hard number to truly calculate because there's different measurements and different things.
Right.
But loosely, it's estimated by a 1995 count, again, kind of when all this was unfolding, in the 90s to early 2000s, that, at least at that time, about 567,000 children under the age of 5 died due to the sanctions.
Jesus Christ.
And that's not to mention the long-lasting effects of, malnutrition on the population.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure there was more that, were affected later on. Again, that number could be give or take, but... Again, that was kind of the consensus at that time in 1995. But 500,000 people.
Already enough.
At least children, yeah. And again, that's also considering complications with birth because of not enough food or no medicine, just different things like that. So not necessarily only kids starving to death, but that's part of it.
Not just the children starving to death.
Of course, yeah. No, there's more. There's more suffering than just the children starving.
Of course.
Don't worry.
Do not worry, folks.
The United States government has got you covered if you like kids starving and people living miserable lives.
Yeah.
Oh, it's good.
That's our number one export.
True.
Yeah.
Misery.
Misery.
True.
Oh,
so
God.
true. Yeah, so sanctions are pretty bad.
Yeah.
And again,
Yeah.
I feel like just kind of how the U.S. uses them. But like, and also we're not like 100% the only place. Like, obviously, again, like Britain and France fucked over places, and just in general, usually it's not the people that we want to hurt who end up hurting from the sanctions.
I mean, that's how like most of this shit tends
look
to
at
work.
fucking like North Korea, like you know, Kim Jong-un, is that the one that's in power right now? I think. Yeah, he's like. I mean, he's not fucking like hurting for anything, but like the people there are all starving and miserable. Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So like, I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Certainly.
But yeah. That's that's my piece.
Well, beautiful.
Thank you.
Great. Fantastic.
Do
I love
a little
it.
plug action and get the hell out of here.
Let's plug her up. Look at our Instagram, which I realized I need to fucking put the shit up. I have forgotten for like the last, I don't know, 2 maybe. So I'm so sorry, everyone. Again, as we've been saying, life has been a little crazy lately.
True.
But I will get those up as well as this one. And that is at Remarks Podcast on Instagram. You can check out our TikTok as well under the same handle. Taylor, what up?
Twitter.com at RemarksPod. Leave us a review and a rating on Apple Podcasts.
Please.
I have music. It's under Taylor Lacey. You can look it up.
Listen.
We were talking about it earlier.
It's good.
Thank you. And, of course, thank you to our patrons. We have Teresa Soltera.
We have Andrew Vance.
Emily Durin.
And Justin Vass. Thank you guys so much. You are so cool for thinking we are cool enough to have some of your money.
Yeah, and if you want to become a Patreon, we post things on there.
Yeah.
Pretty consistently. Again, life gets crazy sometimes,
but
we have a lot of bonus episodes you can go back and listen
totally.
to.
And
sure.
I think they're really fucking funny.
Yeah, it's a little more lighthearted too, which
definitely.
is always nice.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, if you want to do that, do that. Join the Patreon. And yeah.
Werb.
Well.
Okay. And then thank you to Circle Pit Radio.
Oh my gosh, yes. How could we forget?
Corporate overlords.
The wonderful folks down at Circle Pit Radio. Making the circles, doing the pits.
As they do.
Having radios. We love you guys.
We love you.
And thanks for listening. And Kay,
love you. Bye.